It's Good Friday, April the 10th. We call it Good Friday, but 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, it seemed anything but good. It would have began shortly after midnight, a night where there was no sleep for Jesus. He was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. The disciples were slumbering when Judas led a small group of soldiers to where he knew they would be. And those soldiers arrested Jesus after he was betrayed with a kiss from Judas. He was now in custody. He was taken to Caiaphas, the high priest, Caiaphas's house. It was a large house. Caiaphas would have been a very wealthy and powerful person. He would have had a house that is more like a quarters with all kinds of living areas. And there Jesus was now incarcerated. Some believe there in the well, in a prison next to Caiaphas's house. There would be a series of religious trials in the morning before the dawn, probably from around 2 to 6 in the morning. Caiaphas would interview and try Jesus, and he would send him to his father-in-law, Annas, back to Caiaphas. The Sanhedrin would gather, all of this before dawn. It was a trumped-up trial. It clearly violated all law and even religious norms, but they had to get Jesus tried and convicted away from the crowd. They did their evil deeds in darkness because they needed them covered. They needed them done in secret. It would have been somewhere around dawn when most people were waking up on Friday. As the rooster was crowing, Jesus would be led away from the high priest quarters over to the Roman authorities, and the Roman trial would begin. So it was somewhere around dawn that Jesus was led away from Caiaphas to Pilate. The religious leaders would have insisted that Pilate order his execution. So as most people are waking up on Friday morning, things have happened that they don't even know about. Jesus is in custody. He's already been brought before the religious authorities. His abuse and physical mistreatment have already begun, and he is now before Pilate, facing these charges. There is a series of brief Roman trials, and they aren't really trials, they're more like interrogations. From Pilate over to Herod Antipas, and then back to Pilate. Pilate, as you know, feels like he is caught in a no-win situation. He knows that Jesus hasn't really violated any Roman law. He knows that Jesus hasn't done anything worthy of execution. But Pilate's greatest desire is to keep peace in Jerusalem and to keep a social revolution from breaking loose. He wants to give the Jewish leaders what they want in order to appease them. Finally, even though he has a great conflict in his spirit, he knows he really shouldn't, but he is too weak to stand against them, he concedes to allow Jesus to be crucified. All of this would have happened sometime before about 9 in the morning. And between 9 and about 12, the beating, the scourging, the torture of Jesus, the carrying of the cross up to Mount Calvary. His hands are nailed into the cross. His feet are nailed into the cross. The crown of thorns is placed upon his head. And by noon, Jesus is hanging on a cross and will soon give up the spirit. I want to read this passage. Our focus passage for today is Matthew 27 and verse 27. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the governor's residence and gathered the whole company around him. They stripped him and dressed him in a scarlet robe. They twisted together a crown of thorns, put it on his head, and placed a staff in his right hand. And they knelt down before him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews." They spat on him, took the staff, and kept hitting him on the head. And after they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe. They put his clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. It happened on Good Friday 2,000 years ago. By 3 in the afternoon, he would have given up his spirit. Jesus had died. Before the sun sets on Friday, he would have been taken off of the cross and laid into a tomb. Jesus, the Son of God, was now dead. His lifeless corpse was in a tomb. It happened on Good Friday 2,000 years ago. And on this day, may we remember all that our Savior endured and all that our Savior did for us.